This week we are introduced to Booleans, and Booleans are very fun, and it's a little bit different way of thinking, so we're going to go through that now, and we're going to review what we already know about variables in Java, because it's always a good idea to review before learning a new concept. So first of all, I want us to all remember that efficiency is a good coding practice, and we're expected to be efficient with our coding. And one of those ways of being efficient is to initialize variables. And initializing means you declare and you assign them a value at the exact same time. So in this first instance, which you've seen before, the integer is being named hour, and we're setting it equal to 11, all at the same time. And so this is a great technique. Another way is just to declare multiple variables at a time. So I know some of you prefer to do this, and that's fine with me. So this one, all of these three integers are all the same. So to declare them all at the same time, you just say int, and then you put one variable name, comma, the next variable name, comma, your next variable name. And you keep doing that until you're done declaring all of those with the same type. And then you you press the semicolon at the end. And so that's going to do all of your variables. In this instance, it did 3 at once. So the first type of variable that you were introduced to, that you know well, is a string variable. And string is unique because it starts with a capital S, but then the format is the same. So you give the type, you name it, and then because we like to initialize, we set it equal to a value at the same time. And remember, string variables must be always in quotation marks. And then we have our standard syntax that we have a semicolon at the end. The next we have number variables, and there's two types of numbers. We have integers, which are whole numbers, so there's no decimal point here, and then there's doubles, and they sometimes are called floating integer or floating point variables, and that's because the decimal point can vary in location. And now we're up to our fourth type of variable, and that's a Boolean. And Booleans can either be true or they can be false. And this one has a Boolean of cash check. And if check is greater than balance, then that's going to be true. If it's not, then it's going to be false. So that's the only two values that this can hold. It can either be true or false. Comparison operators we've already went through in the last week, but they're very useful with Booleans. So if you're comparing things, you want to see if it's equal to something, you have to have the double equal sign. Not equal has this exclamation point. Less than is the less than sign. Greater than is the greater than sign. And then less than or equal to and greater than or equal to. And remember, you can't mix the order of these. It has to be the less than or greater than sign first, and then the equal to sign. Now we're going to learn about logical operators. And so there's the not operator. So we know that Booleans are either true or false. But if you put the exclamation point in front of a variable, then that changes what you're thinking of it. So if I put it in front of a Boolean, then I'm saying there if it's not true, if I have that exclamation point in front. Now the or and the and, these are great when you have to have two conditions at once. So this one, the or one, means if I put one condition and then I put the parallel lines for the or and then a second condition, that means my Boolean will still be true if either one of those two are true. The and, which you have to have two ampersands, those things are called ampersands, and you find them on your keyboard above the number 7, so you have to do Shift 7 in order to get those. And what that means is both of them have to be true in order for something to happen. So if I can't even think of a sample right now, but I will think of one later on. In my class at my high school, we were doing some situations where people couldn't buy prom tickets unless they were in 11th grade or 12th grade, and they had to be a student at Sandwich High School. So that's when we used the and operator. And we're going to go through a couple of sample questions right now, or sample problems. So the first one is a check cashing sample. And in this sample, we have a value, we have two number variables that I've assigned here. So I've made a check. So this would be like if you had a checking account, you'd be writing a check, and then the balance in my account. So you can see here that I'm writing a check for $50.99, but my balance is only $25.37. So you should be a little wary right now and realize, geez, Mrs. Donahue, your check is not going to be cashed, which is what I would expect. So there's a Boolean that I've set up here, and I said, okay, it's called cash check. So this is a way that like a bank would have. This is a much more simplified program, but this is what bank software would do. So I'd say, okay, I'm going to cash the check if the check value is less than the balance. Yes, less than. So obviously I don't want to cash the check if it's greater than the balance, which it is in my scenario. So if check is less than balance, it's going to send a true to this cash check. So now I go to my if statement. So this is how we're sort of combining all of these new concepts. So these are the if is my conditional. So if this cash check is true. So do you notice I don't even say like equals to true or anything. I just say with Booleans, they assume that you want it to be true. If I wanted this Boolean to be false, then I can put an exclamation point in front of it. Otherwise, it assumes always that I want a true condition. So if it says I can cash the check, I'm going to execute the code that's indented underneath the if statement. This is why our alignment is very important. So it's going to print a line, our large bill's okay. And then it's going to make a new variable, and it's also going to be a double, and it's called avail, and it's equal to the balance minus the check amount, because we should be reducing, I shouldn't have available credit what it used to be. And in fact, that used to be a problem for banks when things were in paper. That's how people would fraud the banks, is because they'd go to one branch and they would take out the money, and they'd go to another branch and they'd take out the money, and the balance didn't update automatically, but it does now because of computer programs. So it's now no longer an issue, but it used to be a problem. And then I'm going to print line. I'm going to say this is my new balance, and I'm going to concatenate it with the available variable that I just created. And now the other part that I'm working on is if there are no funds available. So if that's not true, if it's false, it's going to say no funds available on my screen. I'm going to go through a second example, and then we're going to go to NetBeans. Okay, so in this sample is the movies. So you know you can go to a rated R movie if you're 17 years old or if you have a parent with you. So in this one, I have the person's age being 16, and then I have, and that's an integer because their age is it's gonna be a number, correct? And then a Boolean is just a yes or no condition. Is the parent with you? Yes or no. It can only be true or it can be false. You can't, it can't be maybe I have a parent with you. It's true or false. And so this I'm setting it to true. I've created another Boolean, and it's called rated R. And it's going to be equal to two things. So basically, if the age variable is greater than or equal to 17, then it's going to it'll send a true value. So this condition could be true. Or the condition, are you with a parent, could be true. So if either of these are true, because I used the or here, then that means this will be true if either situation is true. So then I pop down, and I'm going to do some comparisons here. So if rated R, and again that assumes true. So if rated R is true, it's going to do this, execute this line of code. So it's going to do a print line. It's going to tell me to enjoy the show. Else, if rated R is false, so it can either be true or it can be false. So it's just an if and an else statement. It's going to go down here. It's going to say you are too young. So I'm not going to be allowed to see the show. And now we're going to look to see how this looks in NetBeans. Okay, first let's go through the check cashing example. So if I execute this program, we decided before that we don't think that it's going to cash my check because my balance is lower than the check value. So we're going to hit play and see if that's true. And so it's true. It said no funds are available because it looked, and it did, the check value was greater than my balance, so it's not going to work. Let's say I increase my balance. Let's say I add $100 to my account. Let's run this code again and see what happens. Okay, our large bill's okay. My new balance is $74.38. Now, I know it's dollars, but I didn't put the dollar sign, so I'm going to add that into my code to make it look even better. Oops, I keep putting the wrong one. Okay, our large bill's okay. My new balance is $74.38. So that's working exactly as expected when I made those changes. So that's a good way to check your code. You can check for one instance and then for another and see if it runs as expected. So let's go over here to the movie one. And we decided that we thought that I was going to be able to get into the movie if I'm 16 years old because I have a parent with me. So let's run the code to see. And it's true. It says enjoy the show. Now let's say, what if I said I didn't have a parent with me? So that's false. So now I'm expecting my rated R to be false because my age is not greater than or equal to 17. And I also don't have a parent with me. So when I run this code, I expect to get a false statement. Yep, so it says you are too young. So when it said this, so rated R was not true, it was false, so it went down to the else statement. And then it executed the code in the else statement, which said that I was too young, so I wasn't going to be able to attend the movie. And I want to show you one other situation. Let's say, I think they have rated M. No, I'm not sure. Let's just for kicks change this to the ampersand, ampersand, which would mean and. So for this one, before it was an or condition, so either or needed to be true, but this one now, so it's still saying that I'm too young. But let's say I said I was 17 years old. So I switch that to 17, and I'm going to run the code. It's still saying I'm too young. And the reason for that is because I said it needed to be greater than or equal to 17, and I had to have a parent with me. So I have to make both of them true in order for this code to work. So I'm going to run it again. And so now it says that I can enjoy the show. So that sort of gives you an idea, even though it doesn't make sense in this particular scenario why I would use and. But sometimes you will use the and scenario to make two conditions be true. And now I've switched it back. And so this person, even if they didn't have a parent with them, if I put false, this person could still go to the show because they're 17 now. And even if they don't have a parent with them. So I hope that that helps give you some ideas about how you might use the different features with Booleans, and it's very helpful in coding. Enjoy!